Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today we've got some more movie updates for various delays. I talked a little bit about these movies last night on the One Man Low Council, but I figured I'd also dedicate an official video to talking about it today as well. And so, as you can see, Warner Brothers is now starting to step in and announce more movies and what they're going to be doing with them going forward. And we've actually gotten to the point now where movies that were set to come out in June are now being postponed. And I would imagine that you'll see a lot of studios that have not already announced delays or indefinite movings of their various movie titles through June to start doing so very quickly. It looks like we're at the position where even though things could be turning around very soon, we really have no idea. Again, it could take a little bit longer for us to reach the peak. Could be a little bit longer even if we do reach the peak to be able to find any sense of normalcy left, and especially get to the point where movie theaters can basically get to the same point of operation since before all the stuff going on with this crazy beer bug. But as you can see here, Warner Brothers has announced one of the biggest announcements since Black Widow announced being delayed after, saying we don't have an official release date for Black Widow yet. It's just we know it's not coming out May 1st. And basically, I think Disney's trying to say, all right, let's go ahead and wait and see what happens, wait and see where we are in however many weeks, and then we'll determine it from there. My guess is that they want to try and get Black Widow out as quickly as possible, so if they can get it out in the summer movie season, they're going to want to do that because you'll have a lot of people off from school, a lot of people off from work who have been cooped up all day and might actually want to go out and see a Marvel film. It might not work for a lot of other smaller films, but I would say the bigger budget films like Wonder Woman 1984 or like Black Widow could potentially bring a lot of life to theaters because it's going to be an opportunity for people to finally get out and put social distancing behind. But the real question, of course, how long will it be before states, because again, every state's going to be different, allows for those different measures to go forward. But Wonder Woman 1984 has now been pushed back. Also, we have In the Heights has been delayed, which was also set to be a summer release. Scoob, which was a new animated Scooby-Doo movie, and a movie called Malignant, which I had not yet heard of it. So let's go ahead and go to the Deadline article that came out just the other day. So Warner Brothers is pushing its forthcoming summer theatrical releases until the beer bug calms down and exhibition remains, or rather makes a full steam comeback. Despite reports of Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 84 that was heading to streaming, the movie is in fact still going theatrical, and that was always the plan. And so there were early reports going on that I also had reported as well, because a lot of other news sites were talking about it. It wasn't, the We Got This Covered sources. It was even The Wrap, for instance, that had sources close saying they were talking about it. Now, they say, it was always the plan. I don't really believe that, because knowing how these big companies, work and seeing how they've been working for the past several years and how these things change and how everything's going on, everything is always on the table with these things. So there was definitely someone talking about, hey, should we release online? Because you already have seen evidence of that by the fact that other major studios have been doing that. The fact that Disney put out its movie Onward, which, to be fair, was a box office bomb even before everything started going on. I mean, it lost like $200 million for Disney, at least the actual raw box office numbers themselves. But despite all of that, the fact that Disney, as a giant company as it is, released one of its brand new releases to purchase directly onto video on demand services like Apple iTunes and Google Play, that to me tells me, okay, pretty much if Disney's going to do it, Warner Brothers is probably thinking about it too. Universal's thinking about it. Universal is already doing that by not selling their movies necessarily, but by actually renting them out. So it'll be interesting to see who actually makes more from that. Disney, I think, will actually have the better deal, because when you sell a movie on iTunes or Google Play, studios get around 90% or so of the numbers that they are charging for that, versus renting, which is about 70-30% split, 70% going to the studio, 30% being kept by iTunes, Google Play. And so if those contracts and if those rates still hold up in this current crisis, which I imagine they will, because why would iTunes or why would Google Play, why would Apple or why would Google want to lose out on that kind of income? Especially during a time like this when they're having to, lay off certain employees, close certain things down, costing themselves some money in the process. They're going to want to try and keep the revenues up as much as they possibly can. So with that being said, I think that Disney might actually end up making a smarter decision there, because you do have a lot of families at our home right now. And yeah, some of them might be able to wait until Onward comes on Disney Plus, which I imagine will happen relatively soon. But if they can't, hey, they can purchase it for $20 and they can actually own the movie instead of it being, on a streaming service where it can be taken away every now and then, or just a rental like Universal has done. So I imagine that Wonder Woman 1984 at one point in time was being considered by Warner Brothers for some sort of digital release. However, obviously, they thought to themselves, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and wait because we think we can make more money if we wait for the box office to come back in full force. But as you can see there, it has now been pushed back from June 5th to August 14th. So it is still set to have still technically a summer release because many schools are starting to go back at that time. Some haven't fully yet. There's obviously a lot of colleges that don't start until early September. A lot of high schools and grammar schools start, mid-August, sometimes late August. So that's still a pretty good date, a pretty good weekend to be able to make a pretty decent amount of change for DC's Wonder Woman. Do I think it's going to stay there? I honestly don't. I think it'll either be pushed back or it could be pushed up. It really just depends on how far everything going on with the beer bug really happens, right? Because it could extend out much longer than what many people expect. There's obviously been indications from our own president here in the United States that he wants things to start to get back to some sense of normalcy, not fully, right? But to start to maybe get the economy going again in certain areas of the country and certain parts of the country by around Easter time, which would be again around mid-April or so. So we could potentially start to see some things moving back in that direction. However, because every state's different and because that's just basically a hope that we have at this point that we could get to that point, and there's a chance that we won't, because obviously things are changing every day with the number of cases that we have and everything else that's going on. I would not be surprised if Wonder Woman gets either pushed back again to a later date, possibly even to next year, which I think would be terrible for them and also for a lot of people that have been waiting for that movie. But also you could potentially see it get moved up as well as they're continuing to wait on more information about what's going on here. It would make zero sense for Warners to take their most prized DC franchise and push it into homes without reaping the full benefits of a downstream Windows system. But again, the problem with that mindset is that you would technically get more money if you were to sell it directly to the people through services like iTunes and Google Play. Now, I know the biggest criticism of that is, but it also makes it easier for people to be able to pirate it. But piracy is going to happen no matter what. Piracy is going to happen even if you have it released in theaters. It always happens. And so I feel like if it's purely about piracy, I don't think that's a good enough argument. And if it's about, more people will go to see it in theaters than will stay it at home to watch, I don't buy that either, because we live in such a streaming-focused society and so many states are shut down completely and people are running out of content to watch. You have people, first world problems, right? I have nothing to watch anymore, which is why I've been basically, digitizing my entire movie library and now my wife's movie library and now getting into some television shows too, because that way I can always have access to it and no streaming service can take down that content because we own this stuff and it is ours to access at any time. But because we live in that world, right, where these streaming services like Netflix, like Disney Plus are starting to run out of content for some people to watch, not everybody, but for some people to watch, it might be good to have some brand new releases out there. And as I said before, I think that Disney is going to end up coming away with more money by the end of it because they're actually selling it, and based on, these are, you can look it up for yourself about what the rates are, but based on the rates that were previous to all the stuff going on, selling movies, you would get around 90% of the take on that. Renting movies, you would get about 70% of the take. So because they're selling Onward for $19.99 or I think it's about $20 right now, they're selling that movie for to get the 4K version on digital. It's either $20 or $25. That's actually it's pretty standard. They're not really upping the charge like for most films. Like, again, having access to a rental for $20 to $25, that to me is just terrible, seeing that most rentals are usually around $5 to $10. I mean, obviously, I know why they're doing it that way. They're trying to make as much money as they can. But if they really cared about profits, to me, it would make a lot more sense for them just to sell the movie outright and then say later on, okay, now that the market's calmed down a little bit, now that everything's back to normal, let's re-release it in theaters. And if people really like it or have been waiting for it to get a theatrical release, then people could go see it. I don't know. That's just my own thought on that. I know that many of you probably have different thoughts down the road. But let's go ahead and read the rest of this. So it does make actually a lot of sense why they would want to do that. So deadline, that's a little editorializing there, and I don't think it makes zero sense at all. I think it would make a lot of sense for them to release it for purchase because they could make some pretty decent change on that and also plan to release it out publicly as well, especially if you made it more of a limited time release over on the internet side of things. While many are still scratching their heads over Universal's decision to put DreamWorks Animation Trolls World Tour in homes April 10th, many believe it's an experiment on behalf of Comcast. The business fact remains that for multi-$100 million budgeted event films, ancillary revenues spurred by theatrical are the best way to make money at this point in time, because we've never been in a time like this. We've never been able to really test how well digital releases first can actually do when it's a major release. we can't really compare this to, but there's been some movies that have gone direct to streaming, or there's been some movies that have been going direct to this specific streaming service or to this specific platform. We've never had a major release, and that's why Trolls World Tour, which I can never say right the first time, if that movie gets released on April 10th, gets released for purchase or something similar to that by DreamWorks. I don't think it probably will, because Universal's been doing the rental system instead, but they could potentially make a lot of money from that, because guess what? I know that I have a niece that loves the first Trolls movie, and so I know that their parents are probably going to end up getting that movie for her to be able to watch it from home. And I imagine that there's a lot of families out there that will probably feel the same way, which is why, again, purchasing it might be a better option, because you would get more money as a studio. Again, assuming everything has not changed up to this point. But I really hope in a lot of ways that it does do well, for no other reason than just to kind of put this person who wrote this article in their place by saying, it makes zero sense. Well, yeah, because we've never had anything like this happen before. So of course there's going to be questions, and of course we don't really know what's going to happen. But for you to say, it's not going to work at all, there's no way it can work, there's no evidence of that really at this point either. So let's go ahead and look to one last statement before we move on. It says, when we greenlit Wonder Woman 84, it was with every intention to be viewed on the big screen, and are excited to announce that Warner Brothers Pictures will be bringing the film to theaters on August 14th. Allegedly. We hope the world will be in a safer and healthier place by then. That comes from the Warner Brothers Motion Picture Group chairman, Toby Emmerich, who said it in a statement today. And again, I think that there's a fair thing to say about that it could be beneficial to have it released in theaters, that they want to wait for things to calm down. But I just want to make it clear, I think also releasing it digitally could be beneficial to them as well. So a couple other films before, as we wrap up today. So again, In the Heights also was set to have a release on June 26th, so a late June release. This has now been pushed back indefinitely. We don't have an official date on that. Scoob was an animated feature, again, of Scooby-Doo, that was set to release in May, mid-May, and so that film has been delayed. I expect almost every release in May will probably end up getting delayed at some point in time. And then James Wan had a horror film called Malignant. Okay, that's probably why I haven't heard of it, because I'm not really a horror film guy. And so it says, will now shift off of its August 14th release to an undated position. Okay, so basically from what I can gather, they decided to bump Malignant and replace it with Wonder Woman 84, because to push a film back a week when you're replacing it with another one, you're like, wait a minute, but August 14th, how can that be a good date if you're already pushing it off? But the reason why is because they're making room for Wonder Woman 84, and so in order to do that, they're going to push back Malignant. To be honest, Malignant, if it's a horror film, I imagine if they were to push this bad boy back to October, that would probably end up being better for it financially, and especially by October, I imagine that everything will pretty much be back to normal, at least as normal as can be, because we know that this is going to have a long-lasting impact on a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. But anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Are you happy that Wonder Woman got bumped back? I know that a lot of people are not, because they like Wonder Woman, and I totally understand why, but do also, kind of like the main question of the day, do you think that there is more of a benefit, that it would be more profitable for a studio to release their film onto a streaming service, or just onto video on demand like Google Play and iTunes, right? So not even to HBO Max or to Disney Plus or to any of these services, right? But instead to release it directly to the public through these other distributors that would allow them to take around 90% of the profits. Again, I think that it's a better deal than what they get when they release it in movie theaters, because by the end of their runs, they only get about 60% of the box office there. They get to have some control of the pricing of these movies. And also, at the end of the day, I think that it ends up in a climate like this, in a market like this, where you have a lot of people hungry to see new content. I think it could be beneficial to them. But let me know your thoughts about that and everything we talked about in the comments section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, hit that subscribe. It helps us out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Also, please check out my review of the 1917 Blu-ray release. It has not been getting a whole lot of love because YouTube does not like to recommend videos that don't fit the specific algorithmic things. So if you're a fan of my work, if you're a fan of the videos that I make, please consider checking that video out. It should be in one of the recommended videos up here. But please do. It's only got about 400 views, which is very odd because normally videos on here tend to get around 1,000 views or so. So if you could just give that video a little bit of love, I really appreciate it. You guys rock. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now to give a special shout out to my March Patreon and Subscribe Star members: animation commentator Brian P., Dion, David Brobrizik, Divex, Elizabeth M., Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Honker Chunker Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toone, JJ Jonathan Jerembeck, Kenneth Camiel, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Riff Racer Request, Rosetta Allen, Sir Lancelato, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, and Tina B for Patreon, and my Subscribe Star peeps, Robert Revo, Larry, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Dark Star 57, Alex McCarthy, US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebadan G. Adams, and ZK Man, and Mike Jackson. Thank you all so much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members for the month of March. You are all amazing people. Thank you so much for the support, and I hope that you are enjoying your perks. If you do not know the perks that you get, make sure you read again through all the perks that are listed, and also check your messages if you're over on Patreon, because if you are a $5 and up backer on Patreon, you get special access to giveaways over on the Discord. I send out messages with a link to join the Discord server. I will then hook you up over there, and you'll have access to some really cool giveaways. I give away 4Ks, Blu-rays, digital codes, try and give away at least a couple of big movies, 4K Blu-ray titles a month, and try to do at least 2 to 3 giveaways for when it comes to digital download codes. And I might try and do a little bit more this month as well, because I'm always trying to add extra stuff to it. And also, if you are a $10 or up backer, then you have access to a special podcast that I'm starting to do with John the Flick Pick. That's right, John Flickinger of the Flick Pick channel. We're having a lot of fun with the podcast, and so expect that every couple weeks. And of course, also any extra behind the scenes, extra footage, extra interviews, extra solo podcasts as well, you will also have access to. And my special $25 and up backers on Patreon Subscribe Star, you have access to all of those things that I've listed. You also get a t-shirt. That's right, I will send you a t-shirt for your first month. And of course, you can also be featured on the Chosen to Valhalla live stream once a month. You get to be featured on the Odin's Movie Blog channel. It's always usually on a Sunday around 12 p.m. Eastern time. You get to join some lovely peeps and have some really great discussion with all of the Chosen of Valhalla and me with the live audience. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.